Hello, everybody. Hola, Barcelona. It's very good to be here. I was here first time last year. It was amazing, and it's great to be here one more time. This is a lovely city. And thank you all for coming, because I know that 5:45 is like the best time possible to have a presentation after an entire day of talks already. So, but I really want to thank you for that, and I hope you won't be disappointed. So, today my presentation is Star Trek BDD Enterprise, and a bit about me. My name is Tomek. I work in Wrocław in Poland, where I'm a software development manager at Ocado Technology. And I know that manager sounds like, oh, no. It's like, I remember one Venkat's presentation when he told a joke. He was implementing a class, and it was a class manager, obviously without any implementation, because obviously managers don't do anything. But what I do in Wrocław, I look after some teams, and I try to provide them everything they need so they are happy and they can do their work in an efficient, effective way. That's what I do. But today I won't be talking about management stuff. I want to talk something about the communication, but also with some technical aspects. And I don't want this to be like a regular, boring presentation. I want to provide you something else. I want to invite you for something. And what I want to invite you for is to have a small trip around the universe. One question. Raise your hand. How many of you have seen Star Trek? TV series, movies, whatever. Perfect. So, as in Star Trek, as you know, the crew was traveling all around the universe, exploring different worlds, different civilizations, learning from these civilizations. This is what I want to propose you today. I want us to have a trip. I want us to have a trip and to explore the IT universe and possibly learn something. Well, what I want to do, as the Star Trek crew was traveling in the USS Enterprise ship, today I want us to travel on the BDD Enterprise ship. And if we have a ship, every ship needs a captain, right? So for today, I've chosen this guy. And for those of you who have seen Star Trek, I know that Spock was not the captain, he was the first officer, but I've chosen him on purpose. Why? I will explain it just in a few minutes. Okay, so if you are ready, steady, then we can go, right? Go? Go! First stop on our travel, Planet Chaos. Definitely not a friendly place, not like Barcelona. You wouldn't like to spend your holidays there. So what is this Planet Chaos? What do I mean in our IT industry? What are these chaotic organizations? In here, what I mean by that are the companies, are the organizations where business and developers don't talk at all. They sometimes shout, sometimes send some lousy emails, but that's all they do. No communication at all. And what this means, this leads to something which I like to call a requirements hell. When no one knows what should be done, there are no requirements clearly stated, nothing. And, you know, in these conditions, as developers, actually watching YouTube for 8 hours a day is not really motivating, right? I've been once in such a company, and it works for a week, maybe 2, nothing more. So, as developers, even if we don't have clear requirements, you try to do something, but the impression is, well, we have no idea what we are doing, right? And if we don't have no idea what we are doing, you can look from the business perspective. The guys are saying, these guys are doing something, but it's completely not fitting our needs. So these guys from business side, they think they work with idiots. And this is nightmare. This is requirements hell. And if you are in such an organization, I have just one question to you. What the hell are you doing there? There are still so many nice organizations, nice companies, so change, make a move. And this is what we are going to do. Let's leave this place and make a move. Let's move to our next stop, which is Planet Waterfall. We are developers, right? Well, I'm a manager, but I still like to say I'm a developer. Manager is nothing to be proud of, right? Okay, so you have LinkedIn accounts. And probably you get around a zillion messages per week with new job offers. And when you get these messages, what do you have there? Well, every company tells to be a super agile company. They are like agile gurus, agile ninjas, agile whatever there is, but always agile. And then you go there and you see that it's not actually true, right? On the other hand, from my experience, the companies I work for, the people I talked with, honestly, I don't think that are that many pure, I've never met a pure waterfall organization. I think after many, many years, these managers in such companies discovered something which is nicely called iterations. So they are not doing this exactly. So what do I mean here by a waterfall or waterfallish, let's say, waterfallish organization? This is something which I like to call the silos kingdom. Organization where we have beautiful, big silos. Places where developers, QAs, business, managers, subject matter experts, whoever there is, they work totally separately. They don't communicate each other, they don't talk directly to each other, they just communicate by some emails, etc. They are separated. So this is what I mean here. A waterfall organization for me is a place where people are sitting apart and they are not able to communicate directly. And if we have a kingdom, not really nice kingdom, right? It's rather a dark kingdom. Well, if we have a kingdom, we need to have a kings there. We need someone to rule. So let's think who can be a dark lord? Who can be a dark lord in like this waterfallish organization? And if I ask you a question, in this sci-fi universe, who would be like your first thought of the main bad character in sci-fi universe? Obviously, Darth Vader. But if you look carefully, he's reaching for something, right? He's raising his hand and he's reaching for something. And if you look close enough, you will see he's reaching for a Microsoft Word. Coincidence? I don't think so. And if you look at this the 7th episode of Star Wars, there's a new bad character, it's Kylo Ren. And if you can see, his lightsaber changed. It's not straight anymore, it has this cross at the end. Coincidence again? No. If you look closely again, it's Microsoft Excel. Those are the kings, those are the two dark lords that rule waterfall organization. Documents, papers. Documentation is a main source of knowledge in such organizations. And when I was working in such organization, I felt like I just push paper to other paper pushers. Because if you want to make any even smallest change, you need to write this document, then you need to sign off, then you need to approve the sign off, and then you need to sign off the approval for the previous sign off by a guy who approves the sign off for approvals. And it works like that. When I was trying to make a change, very simple change, let's say it was described in some document, CR212. So I looked into this document, I looked into the code, and it's like, document, code? Doesn't fit. There's no match. So I started digging, right? And it turned out that the CR212 is actually an extension of CR271 or something, which was already described in document CR56, which was unable to find. And if you start digging, it blows. In such organization, the documents are the source of truth. Plenty of outdated documents. And my only reaction to that was, screw you guys, I'm going home. And this is actually what I did because I changed my job. And this is what we are also going to do. Let's leave this. Let's leave these places full of papers, full of documents, and let's move on. And before we go to the next stop, I wanted to ask you a question. What if I told you that we can know how the system works based on how it actually works? Our next stop, much nicer place. We will spend here some more time. This is the planet Agile. And as I'm talking about documents, and as I'm talking about checking how the system works, well, first of all, one of the 4 Agile core values, working software over comprehensive documentation. This is what is important. Documents are okay, but working software, this is what is truly important. So if you, for example, go to the restaurant, and this restaurant had like great opinions on TripAdvisor or wherever, and you go there, the menu looks beautiful. You order your dish, you try it, and oh, it's crap. What will you think about this restaurant? Was it good because it had great opinions, or was it bad because the food actually was disgusting? Well, for me, the choice is obvious. But in the IT world, why we often tend to look at these documents instead of working software? Well, maybe the answer to this question is because measuring working software is pretty much hard. How do you measure working software? Document is easy, it's there. Everyone can read that. But how to measure something which is not that easy to spot, not that easy to touch, not that easy to kind of understand, especially for people from outside of technology? And how to measure it, how to check how is our software actually working? Well, I hope this guy can help, giving you a little hint. Well, you shall not pass. What in our software can either pass or fail? Obviously, tests. Exactly. And if you look at what are tests, well, if you have a test, this scenario, this test scenario, describes some system behavior, right? It tells this system should work in that and that manner. And if you run the test, you have the answer if this is working software or not. Because if your test is green, it means that the system actually behaves in the way described in the test scenario. Obviously, I assume that tests are written in the correct manner, right? These are good tests. So green means, yes, the system actually works that way. If it's red, the test fails, well, it simply means that we don't know how it works, but definitely not the way that is described. We need to check, we need to debug, whatever. But we have the answer. This behavior right now is not supported in our working software. These tests, this is the way how we can say what this software is actually doing. And this is what we are going to talk about today. So, tests. Tests are the best documentation. I told you already about some papers. These papers that get outdated, they are stored somewhere in the cloud, shared drive, whatever you have there, in the emails, and they are always outdated. No one looks into them. Well, comparing to the tests, which give you the actual state of your software in a given moment of time, for me, tests are so much better. Why we have left fewer of them, why they are not so valuable? Because they are technical very often. And people from business, etc., the tests cost more than documents in the first place, obviously, in short term. So this is why we have a lot of docs, because it's easier and less tests. But there is a way to have tests that can be used by everyone. So our next stop is not another planet, actually, right? Because we are still around some agile practices. It's rather a moon around our agile planet. So this is the BDD. And please raise your hands. How many of you already heard about BDD and know what it means? Perfect. Obviously, it's beer-driven development, which we are going to perform tonight. And it's my definitely favorite way of writing software. Okay, but seriously, behavior-driven development, right? Simple thing, simple cycle. First, you think how your system should behave. Second thing, you create a test scenario for the behavior. Third, you develop, implement this behavior, write automated test. That's it. Simple as that. Very simple, even trivial. And the given when then is kind of connected with behavior-driven development. In general, given when then pattern is kind of related with behavior-driven development. Simple, right? But okay, wait a minute, genius, yeah? Isn't this entire BDD exactly the same as TDD? Because, oh, come on, if you look into my tests, well, I named them properly. Well, like, should do something when something. It's a pretty nice pattern to name your tests. Then I have my sections given, when, then. So where's the difference? And actually, this question is kind of natural. And BDD is actually like TDD, if. And this is not my quote. This is actually the title of blog post that Dan North, the creator of BDD, written as a reply to Uncle Bob accusations, maybe, let's say. In general, Uncle Bob said, okay, man, I appreciate your work, but I found it out, I figured out 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I called it TDD, and that's all, that's nothing new. So Dan North replied to Uncle Bob with this post, and I will try to explain you what's the difference between BDD and TDD, and let's have it done in like Matryoshka style. So if you look at the concepts regarding testing, we can have it like that. There's concept of unit testing, right? Very broad. We just test a very simple isolated unit. Then out of this, you can have, for example, test first. So you do unit testing, but you do it before you write the code. Then you can have TDD. And TDD makes a bit different. Because if you look at unit testing, test first, those are things that are purely focused on code and test level. TDD goes a step above, because it gives you a design, right? When you do TDD, you actually have testable design. You write as much code as is possible. It gives much more than just a purely code level. And BDD is even yet one step above. Then North, in his post, told Uncle Bob that, yes, you are right. BDD is like TDD if you don't have any business people in your team. He said that, Uncle Bob, in your company, when you were doing this, you had only technical people there. And if you don't have business people, TDD and BDD is exactly the same. But if you start to work with business people, subject matter experts, people who are not technology guys, you need a way to communicate with them. BDD is a way to improve communication between business and developers, and it helps you on the analysis level, so even yet level above. Okay, going back to that, business can tell you simply, okay, I'm already doing this. I already do it in Excel. When I was working in like a big company where it was more waterfall, it was very simple. I was getting an Excel with test cases, and then I was running the code, doing tests manually, then putting green background in every test scenario, and it was tested. It was perfect. So I was sending it back, story was done. It was great. So what's new in here? Well, where's this difference? Is this BDD just yet another buzzword? And the difference is that when I prepared this Excel, when I did all the test cases and put the green background in every test scenario and set it back, what happened with this Excel? It died. It literally died somewhere in the cloud or somewhere on a shared drive or whatever. No one looked into it again. And the thing is that if you are doing BDD and out of your scenarios, after your behaviors, you create automated tests, it's alive. These tests are executed every time, after every commit. You have this test working all the time and validating if these behaviors are still supported by working software or not. So it's alive. And actually, a very nice practice, and most BDD tools are supporting this. So again, business, right? Business don't like technical things. They don't like technical stuff. And when they hear about automated executable tests, they will be like, oh. Business don't know what the word executable. They know the word executive, maybe, but executable, nah. So will they be able to work with you? Because as I said, this BDD is a concept to help you make business and technical people, business and developers, communicate better. So how to influence these guys, how to convince them to start doing this. And this is not that technical if you show it to them, because if you look at the pyramid of tests, are you doing BDD on a unit level? Not really. Integration level? As well, not really. BDD is good when you have analysis, when you have business scenarios. So this is only the system test level. This is where BDD is useful and helps to communicate business and development. So to convince business, you can tell them, this is not that technical. And I will show you that it's even less and less technical as you go. And this is what I wanted to show you. This is a little twist, because technical tests, etc., may sound scary, but how most of BDD framework works? Well, you have something which you can call story file, you can call it a feature file, etc. And if you look into these story files, well, they look more or less like this. And as account user, I want to make money transfer on my account. And scenario, I would go in transfer from user account, given user has $100 on his account when user makes $50 transfers and so on and so on and so on. It doesn't sound any technical, right? Everyone can read that. My grandmother can even read that, actually. Of course, if she knew English, but this is a different story. So this is not a difficult technical language. This is simple. So it shouldn't be hard to get business involved because this is language they operate. And there is a huge benefit for the business. And this is a practice that we did in one company when we were doing BDD. From that test, we were, after every build, exporting an online documentation. When business was coming with questions to us, we were telling them, hey, here's the doc. It was generated 10 minutes ago. It shows you what the system does. Go there and find answer to your question. And if our people from the business were not able to find the answer for that question, it didn't mean that they are stupid. It meant that we created documentation in a wrong way. And then we started to shape our package structure and everything, so the generated documentation was actually like a table of content in the book. So the people from business were able to just go there, see what they were looking for, and get the answer quickly without bothering developers. And actually, this whole concept of this crafting package structure, tomorrow Sandro is here with the closing presentation. I've talked with him about it, and he has this great presentation about crafted design. And this is one of the concepts that he's telling about crafting, about shaping your packages. So they are telling a story. They are not just packages for like business domain or whatever, but they tell you the story about your software. So giving this to the business is saving their time. So this is yet another argument why it's worth to involve business guys in your process, involving them in behavior-driven development. Okay, enough theory. Let's talk about some tools. There are 4, I think, like most, let's say, popular tools to do BDD in Java: JBehav, Fitness, Cucumber, and Concordant. I worked with JBehav around 1.5 to 2 years, so I know it like best. And I experimented with Fitness, Cucumber, and Concordant when I was thinking which to use in my next project. And I wanted to explain you how these tools work, more or less. Well, how most of this works, because there are differences. I'll be mainly focusing on JBehav because I know it, but the concept is generally the same for all these frameworks. There might be a little difference between naming, like here we have story file, and in, for example, Fitness, I think we have feature files, details. Okay, so how most of the frameworks work. So we have this story file I told you about already. The story file contains this nice description in human-readable language, and we can show it to the business, and it's just perfect. Well, I missed one thing. Actually, behind the story file, we need to have a file with the code, because yeah, sometimes something needs to be executed, right? So the story file is one thing, but the code file is a second thing. And we can say that this code file kind of implements the story file. Okay, can live with that? Let's see the pros and cons of this solution. Well, first thing, if we have 2 files, we have 2 files to maintain. And that's the problem. We have 2 files to maintain, and the one thing more is that they are really highly coupled. These 2 files need to be maintained in the same time. If you make changes to one of them, you need to update the second one, and the other way. So this is problematic straight away. You have same things like duplication. You have this same logic in 2 files, and you need to remember to maintain them in the same time, to make synchronous changes, because otherwise your tests will start to fail. So, rather a drawback, right? Next thing, if you look at the actual code, this is a piece of code from JBehav, and it's using regex, right? This is a simple regex matching in order to find the right step to be executed, right? If you have a step in your story file, it needs to find the proper piece of code that needs to be executed in order to run this step. So it's using regex matching, and the question to you is, well, which of these steps will be executed? Because here we have the value returned is empty, the value returned is binded to some kind of a value variable, yeah? And what if we have a step in our scenario? The value returned is empty. Both of them matches. So which will be executed? And the funny thing is that you don't know, because this is Java runtime environment dependent. Actually, JBehav, we had this situation that we had it's nothing to be proud of, but we have a big test file, and it started to fail. It was failing, and we had no idea why. And we found out that when we swapped the order of the methods, it started to work. And started digging more, digging more, digging more, and it turned out that actually the step that will be executed depends on the reflection implementation in Java runtime environment, which can differ. So you don't have the possibility, you don't have the only one way that your test can be executed. And this is kind of problem. You want your test to be deterministic, right? So this is another thing that is problematic in these BDD frameworks we have already. So next thing, integration with IDE. It's getting better, but still, if you have just regular text file and the code file, it's really hard to find which step will match, especially that there are regex, etc. To find which step will be in the story file, how it maps to actual code that will be executed, is simply difficult. And it's painful. We have two files. IDE is not supporting that really well, so we have another drawback. And another thing, this is another mistake that we made in my previous company and my previous project. These frameworks are heavyweight players. We had this great idea that, well, if we have system tests that are done in JBehave, well, let's do component tests in the same way. Well, unfortunately, it turned out that if we have 100, let's say, system tests, and the build lasts 5 minutes, and we have 500 component tests, the build starts to be like half an hour or more. And this framework is simply slow, it's heavy. So it's not really helpful. It can be used only on the system level. What it means that you are adding JBehave on a system level, but you need to have JUnit on unit level, you need to have something, whatever, on integration level. So you have to have more and more frameworks, and your project is getting more complex, simply. So we have 4 frameworks. They all work more or less the same. And none of them is really convincing. So if we have no idea what to do, as the crew, we should ask our captain, right? So if we have these frameworks, we see the drawbacks they have. Well, should we use any of them? Is any of them any kind of interesting? Well, Spock is definitely not amused. And if we see drawbacks of the frameworks, well, using it will be actually beneficial? Not really, rather illogical. So the question is what to do. What to do to have a good framework to support BDD and work with business? And my answer is, from my experience, use Spock. This is why he's our captain today. Use Spock, because Spock is very good for unit testing, but it's also amazing if you want to have behavior-driven development done right. So, why Spock? Why Spock? Well, first thing is because it's Groovy, baby, right? And Groovy is groovy because, well, first thing, it's a dynamic language. It supports functional style. I wouldn't dare to say it's functional, but it supports functional style. When there was no Java 8, it was the only way to write in more or less functional manner. So those are the benefits. It's easy for Java developers. If you know Java, you can start writing in Groovy. In general, you just need to change the extension from Java to Groovy, and more or less everything should be fine. 99% of Java code works as Groovy code. So it's very easy to swap from Java to Groovy. And it has these nice boosts, syntax boosts. You don't have to, you can do lists nicely, you can do maps nicely, and the syntax simplifications. You don't need to put dots, you don't need to put semicolons, you don't even have to put parentheses. So all in all, it allows you to be more expressive. And most of presentations I've seen about Spock, they say how in a cool way you can use all this. Because, for example, in Groovy, yeah, in Spock you can do something like this. This is totally valid Spock syntax. This is an assertion, if you don't know it yet. This is an assertion, which means you can anytime call any object with any method with any arguments. Super useful. I've seen it on many presentations that, yeah, you can do that. But I don't want to focus on that because this is not useful. This is not why anyone should do this. So what I want to show you is that using Spock and using Groovy is perfect if you want to have the DSL. Groovy is powerful to create your own domain-specific languages. Even actually, Spock is a DSL based on Groovy. And how can we use that? How can we use this power of creating DSL, the power of Groovy, to make BDD happen, to make business work with us, to create better requirements, to create better analysis, to create better tests? Well, let's do it on use case. This will be use case from my world. I work at Ocado Technology. In general, we sell grocery online. So let's have this business use case very much from my world. It will be very simple. To give you a context, customers can do shopping in our shop. When he checks out, we need to calculate the right delivery charge depending on the total value of the basket, delivery date, and if customer has bought delivery subscription. And the scenario is as that. Shopping for more than £40 should not be charged. Simple, right? And our scenario is as that. Given customer has products for £50 in the basket, when customer checks out, then no delivery charge is added to the receipt, and email with receipt is sent to the customer. Perfectly valid business requirement. Right? Okay, so this is written in JBehave. This is JBehave story file. Let's now try to migrate it to Spock and see how it will look like. So first things first. First things first, we had this narrative. So let's migrate it to Spock. This is JBehave, Spock, JBehave, Spock. It's not changing much, right? We just changed, like, we added some at the beginning, added some apostrophes, that's it. Okay, seems fine. Let's go forward. There will be some, you can add some additional stuff in here in Spock. You can add the title. This is all to create nice documentation in general. This is so the extracted documentation is nicely, you have all the context and you can give it to the business so they can read it. Okay, there's a piece of code showing here already, but it's not much. Business can skip that. We need to create a class, etc., etc. Okay, this was simple. This was not very technical. We can show it to the business and they will be happy. If they like the story file from JBehave, this will be also okay. It's still readable. Okay, but let's go to the hard part. The scenario itself. So, JBehave, Spock. JBehave, Spock. Okay, again, not much changed. The problem is that here I lied you a little bit, because this is not all. Because we need to add a piece of code here. And if we show this right now to the business, and they see code, it will be like, whoa, 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 whoa. This is code, this is not our job. Do your technical work somewhere else. We want normal language. Okay, but let's try. Give me a try to show you that we can achieve that using Spock and using Groovy. So, we're getting back in here. I did some Java implementation inside, right? Okay, so we have this code. It's not that bad code. We have some builders, so some design patterns, so yeah, some matchers. It's not a bad test. But from guys from the business will be like, oh, code. We hate code. We don't want to look into the code. Okay, so let's maybe refactor it a little bit. We've hidden all the code behind well-defined methods, right? It looks better. You even can read it. A customer with £50 worth basket, checkout, assert that delivery charge is 0. It sounds right. It sounds okay. But for the business, still, oh. And you know why? It took me 3 years to understand. Business people cannot read camel case. I was shocked. Seriously, I've showed some tests to a guy from the business, and he was like, class, what's happened in here? It's like, where are the spaces? Seriously, I was surprised. I thought this is like so obvious that we can read. But yes, it's obvious for us, for developers. We are used to this. We can read camel case. But people for business, So this is yuck. This won't work. Okay, so let's leave Java and let's try to have some Groovy magic in here. So let's change this to Groovy. Okay, we have a customer with £50 as a sign, not a pounds as a word. We have some spaces, looks better. Yeah? And in here, well, you can read it, it has spaces, so the business most probably will be like already, well, not bad. I can read that. It's not bad. But with Groovy, with this language and the flexibility it has, the expressiveness it gives you, you can go even further, because it didn't take me a lot to create a DSL that allows to refactor this test even further and have something like this. Customer with basket of value 50, customer checkout order, delivery charge equals 0, email sent to customer. And this is executable code. This is the code that actually, this is not just text. This is the code that is being executed. And for business, ta-da! Okay, this looks good. It doesn't look like code at all, so it's fine for us. We can read that, we can use that. So this is good. Okay, so question, what we achieved here? Well, we achieved a way to show business our code, our tests, and ask them for feedback. We can involve these guys and work on our tests together. So what we actually implement is being validated by tests that were prepared with the business. This is what they actually want. Like in specification by example, tests are verifying the expected behaviors. And if you work with business on these tests, you are closer to having what business actually needs. So we achieved that, but come on, we want more. From our technical perspective, what we achieved using Spock here, apart from this, that business can look into this test and it's not running away. Well, first thing, we have only one and only one file to maintain, which I doesn't have to explain that it's much more better than having two files, especially if they are coupled. So we have this one single file, this Spock file, and that's it. The story file and the code are in the same place. You don't have to worry about them. So one thing for us. The second thing, we have the right tools. This is Groovy. This is the language. This is programming language. You have syntax validation. You can use it. You can write the code in any IDE, and you will have this correct syntax validation, etc., etc. So you have this. You have IDE integration. And come on. Can you imagine writing code in Notepad still? No, we have these tools to simplify our lives. And now it's possible. And next thing is, we have this direct link. As I told you, in JBehave or in any other frameworks, it was difficult to map the step from the scenario to the right piece of code that is going to be executed. In here, you have this in one place, so you don't have to think, okay, for this step, will this piece of code be run or this piece of code be run? No, you have direct link, and it solves all your problems. Next thing, Lord of the Rings, one to rule them all. Spock is lightweight. Spock is robust. Spock is fast. You can use it to have BDD on system test level, but on the same time, you can use it on unit level and have your unit test build being fast. It's very lightweight, it's very simple, so you can have one framework that fits all your testing levels. Instead of having different tool for every different tests, you can have one framework that is fitting all your needs, and you don't have to make your project more complex and CV-driven development. So I have 5 testing technologies doing my simple CRUD. But here you can have just one framework and use it everywhere. Now the question, having all this, looking how these system tests with business behaviors, how they look like, can the business work alone? Nope. It's easy to read these tests, but it absolutely doesn't mean that it's easy to write them. Furthermore, the more DSL you have in the middle, it's yet harder to write it. So it's easier to read, it's more expressive, but it always comes with a cost. And this is what I want to tell you. This looks, at least for me, this looks really cool. You can write this test as normal language. You can show it to people and say, ha, look like how cool it looks. It has a price. It has a cost. The question is, if you are planning to have BDD, the question is, do you need this extra DSL level at all? How much you want your business to be involved in your work? Maybe creating the story files itself is enough and giving them a documentation at the end. Maybe this will be enough and you don't need to do any magic to have this extra nice code inside, because your business may be not interested to look in there. Maybe you can just have everything you wanted without them doing this. Just working together on story files, and then later on only on story files levels. So everything comes with a cost. Business never will be able to work alone because, come on, for some reason we are developers, right? We know this technical stuff. These guys don't. They can look into our code and read it more easily, but they will never be able to actually write it themselves that easily. So, some final thoughts at the end. Well, Spock for BDD. As for me, as I told you, I tried all these Java frameworks. Spock for BDD, as for me, is one and only one solution that in my case worked, actually worked. This is something that I was using maybe, because now I'm not coding that much, but I was using and it was working as it should, without any pain, anything. So this is something which I can, from my experience, truly recommend. Not only for unit test level, but yes, Spock for unit test is also great. But I didn't want to show you this syntax, sugar, etc., etc. This is not a presentation about unit test. It's a topic for just yet another presentation. But for BDD, it works very well. And you don't have to do much. Actually, to prepare all these examples, I needed 2 books. One of them was Java testing with Spock, to in general learn Spock. And the second was Groovy Domain for domain-specific languages, where this book shows you how to do all that magic in Groovy to have this crazy, crazy DSLs. And that's it. It doesn't take much to start experimenting with Spock. So it's very easy to, the entry is very easy and cheap. You can just start doing it even this week, just to try it. So, but what the BDD is all about? I always say that the tools are something which is not that important. The important thing is the culture, the way we work. Maybe this is why I'm a manager, because I more than focusing on tools, I want to focus on the environment. I want to create an environment that we can do our work and nothing comes into our way. And BDD is one of the things that simplifies this culture stuff. It simplifies the communication. Business and developers. 2 different worlds. Very technical world and business. You know business. Woo! They are crazy. There's like so many thoughts in their minds in the same time. I never get it. and BDD is a way to help these guys to take all these thoughts from their heads, what they want, what they expect, and put them in some valid test cases that will actually state what they want. So this BDD, this is a way to make you work better, make you work more efficiently, make you work together with business on delivering what this business actually needs. And this is the important thing. It improves communication. And guys, communication is the key to success. Every problem, every bad situations, every problem on the production, every bug, if you start to dig deeper and dig deeper and dig deeper, it usually ends up lack of communication or miscommunication. So every tool that helps you to build right communication, especially with business, which are guys from a different world, this is something which is worth investing. And with Spock, you can try it easily, and you can see for your own eyes if it works for you or if it doesn't work for you. That's it from my side. Thank you very much. Yep. Oh, finished. Okay, if you have any questions, then please ask.
Hello.
I'll put that if anyone, because I don't know if we'll have enough time for questions. Here's like my Twitter or anything. You can just approach me on the party tonight. You can ask me on Twitter or anything. So, but if you have any questions now, I think we have some time.
Question here. So I've tried BDD, and the main drawback that I found about BDD is that while following the same example as the bank account and transfer funds and all that stuff, while before business was writing down the requirement or document, whatever, like whenever you transfer funds from account A to account B, should be withdrawn from account A and should be added to account B. Now you show them like 60 pages of test cases about negative values, what happens if it reaches 0, max int, all that stuff. And now you handle them like, yeah, why don't we check that? And then you, what, spend like 2 hours with business like validating examples, and it's kind of
Okay. Yeah, I get your problem. The thing is, this is something which I told you on some slide. There was that the question is if having a test that has all the negative values, etc., is it actually the right level for JBehave? For me, this corner cases, well, what do you have negative values? What would that A be, whatever? This should be tested, I think, on the lower level. Like on unit test, you should test this all the possible cases, and on the system test, you should be testing like valid business scenarios. And this usually you have few of them, and this is what you work with business on. Because, yeah, I think this is what for these guys is the most important thing. If this system actually supports that given feature. It is important if it will fail, if, for example, someone has, I don't know, negative or try to transfer more money than he has. But this can be eliminated on lower level using some tests that business not necessarily needs to see. They just need to know, okay, we secured everything. And this is what this feature about.
just one last question from me. I've also tried the Cucumber and other options that you showed. One thing that I struggled also was about like when you have like several like sentences, right, that you can write down. At the end, you cannot remember like all the, let's say, 200 sentences that you've written, and you might write like a clone of a previous one, and etc. And do you know if Spock and auto-completion of ID already like solves that problem, that helps you reminding about previous implementations of the steps?
First things first. If you have like a story that is 200 lines and 200 steps, I would consider making it smaller.
I'm saying that you have already like a dictionary among all your test cases, like a dictionary of 200 different steps. But I'm not saying that you have a single step with 200, a single test with 200 steps.
Yeah, I know what you mean. We did this in JBehave as well. We had like plenty of steps, so we were doing like trying to not duplicate the code, so we were kind of like doing some, we are exporting this to different methods, creating helpers and doing some like delegations. And Spock, you can do actually the same. If you have the steps that are similar for many scenarios, why not to extract them? You can extract them, create some, you know, like another helper class, whatever you need, whatever design fits you, and have this there so you won't make the duplications. Again, you can name these methods anyhow you want, and then just use that in your code. Okay, any more questions? Okay. Thank you very much, Dan. Thank you that you made it till that hour. Yeah. Thank you.